live? We're live. All right. Oh, Roadblock's just gone down, and I don't know what to tell you. It was a house show. If you thought anything else was going to happen, well, the guy who delivers bad news quit. So figure it out for yourself. It is Austin 316 month. In other words, it is March of 2016. But it's actually March 12th, 2016. In a world where everyone has an opinion on professional wrestling, so do I. I'm a man with a plan. This is the Wrestling News Experience. After dark. You know that. That's why you're listening. We are how many weeks away from WrestleMania? 3 Raws. Anyway, 3 Raws, just under 4 weeks away from WrestleMania. No, that's not right. 3 Raws, just under 3 weeks, because it's Saturday. Listen, you know, when you're perfect, we'll talk. We're 3 weeks away from WrestleMania. We just went off on the network a half hour early, of course. WWE Roadblock, live from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I was not there because, well, it was a house show, and I knew it would be a house show, so I didn't bother wasting the money to go see a house show. And I have the network. I just saw it. It happened. Like I said, I don't know what you were expecting. I know we have had all this hope. You know, there were people. Maybe WWE will make that choice and they'll make that decision and say, you know what? Dean Ambrose wins, or somehow gets added to the title match, or somehow we do something screwy and it ends up with a fatal 4-way match with Ambrose, Lesnar, Triple H, and Roman Reigns. Nope. This was a house show where Triple H and Brock Lesnar were going to appear. They put it on the network because Brock Lesnar was there. And nothing happened. But yes, good wrestling matches. And yes, that's if you want to watch a house show, see good wrestling matches. I thought there was some great wrestling on the show tonight. I went in fully knowing that absolutely nothing would change, and I was satisfied with what I saw, because what I saw was some excellent wrestling. If you went in there hoping for, I don't know, whatever you were hoping to happen, sorry. If they're going to change a world title, it's not going to happen at the Ricoh Coliseum, let me tell you. That place doesn't even hold 8,000 people. No way that was happening. It was, but it was a good show, and we got the results here. We can go through them. We can talk about what I liked about the show. I mean, I don't want to complain, because as nice as it would have been to have Dean Ambrose win or have Dean Ambrose somehow end up in the main event, I knew it wasn't going to happen going in. So I can't say I didn't like it, because I knew what this was. As nice as it is to fool ourselves, we knew going in. They did an MSG house show in October, back when it wouldn't have affected anything for them to do something special there. And they didn't even have, like, a tag team title change hands. I mean, it's because the New Day were still holding them, but, so what do we have tonight? We had the New Day versus the League of Nations, which was fine. Probably a preview of this exact same match at WrestleMania, probably with Sheamus and Rusev instead of Sheamus and Barrett, or something of that matter. Or maybe because the Wyatt family has nothing to do, they'll get thrown in there, and maybe the Dudleys and the Usos. I don't know. Yes, people are hoping for the change because they don't want Reigns, but yeah. Realistically, that was never going to be the case. The tag title situation, there's no specific feud. So a multi-tag match is almost certain at this point. Although I'm wondering if they'll do that when you've already got. It looks like the Intercontinental title will be fought in a multi-man match. Um, so and plus you're gonna have the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. So that's a lot of multi-man matches. I don't know if you bother to throw the tag matches, make it that as well. But they've got 3 Raws to make up the rest of the card. Um, wow, I forgot to do all my opening spiel, but we'll get back around to that. I'm just I'm out of practice. I had to take a week off last week. Oh, ironically, before we go any further, I took the show off last week because I was exhausted, and yes, I fell down some stairs uh, at 3 in the morning one day. I messed up my back. I'm okay, but I needed to take some time. And what ended up happening was I had stressed myself into insomnia that night, and I actually didn't sleep at all. I It was just ridiculous. I stayed up all night. I slept for like 3 hours when my wife came down at 7 o'clock in the morning and said, "Go get some sleep." So that was a weird night for all of us. But moving on, moving back to Roadblock. Um, what happened next? Wow, I just saw it. Well, we only covered we covered New Day. Does New Day leave with the titles at Mania? Um, Given that we don't even really know who they're facing at Mania, I'm going to have to say yes. Um, it also depends on if a certain tag team debuts before WrestleMania. I suspect it's more likely they will debut after WrestleMania, but I think we're looking at New Day leaving Mania with the titles. Apparently, there's a less than 50% chance that the New Day will make an entrance at WrestleMania riding unicorns. Somebody might want to check the math on that. Um, I don't know everything about unicorns, but saying less than 50% chance still seems rather high. Damn it, I literally just posted the results. Okay, next. After the opening match, the New Day versus League of Nations, we had Chris Jericho versus Jack Swagger, and I'm not sure what the plan with that was. Um, Not that Chris Jericho was going to get cheered in Canada, because we will play along, and Chris Jericho is a heel that we will boo because we know we're supposed to, and we enjoy watching him as a heel. But then you sent in the middle of, let's not forget that this show took place in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, to face off against evil heel Chris Jericho. They sent out the American Patriot Jack Swagger. And I get that this is a house show, but of the 50 or so guys on the roster, you decided that Jack Swagger was the one you wanted to try and get cheered as the face in Canada. Like, why didn't you, instead of giving Chris Jericho an opponent, why didn't you just have Vince strut out and flip off Toronto? Because it's the exact same thing. So, consequently, it didn't matter if the match was any good or not. It wasn't particularly good. Um, but the crowd didn't give a shit because who cares about Jack Swagger, and especially who in Canada cares about Jack Swagger? Yeah, that is just baffling that that was the decision they made. I know they have half rosters. I know half the rosters in Atlantic City, but even with that, somewhere on that half roster had to be someone who's a better option than Jack Swagger. It boggled the mind, and Jericho won obviously because it's a house show and it's Chris Jericho, but just the crowd was absolutely dead because they weren't cheering Chris Jericho and they don't care about Jack Swagger, so there's no crowd reaction. And the crowds were kind of muted all night. I put that down to the fact that the Rico Coliseum is not large. Um, it's 8,000 people, less than 8,000 people for hockey. It's still a cavernous arena, but it doesn't hold many people, so I'm suspecting that had something to do with the sound being muted. Maybe I'm just crazy or making excuses. I don't know. I would have liked to see, yes, since Sami Zayn was on the show later, I'd love to see Sami Zayn versus Chris Jericho, but I can understand because it was televised and Zayn just made his debut, and Jericho is facing Styles at WrestleMania more than likely. I imagine they wanted them both to win their matches and not have inconclusive televised matches. It's similar to the Atlantic City show got Kevin Owens and AJ Styles in a 30-minute Iron Man match, those lucky bastards. I suspect that is also because at some point Kevin Owens will feud with AJ Styles, and they don't want that televised before it happens, or at least minimally televised. Um, so that happened. The next match was, I believe, I've got the results right here on Goliath.com where I work during the day. Yes, the Revival, Dash and Dawson from NXT defeated Enzo and Big Cass to retain the NXT Tag Team Championships. Not to spoil anything happening up on NXT, but this would probably signify the end of Enzo and Cass on NXT, whether they debut on Raw, say Monday or after WrestleMania. They don't appear on the tapings for up to TakeOver in Dallas. There will be different number one contenders for TakeOver in Dallas, and it was pretty certain that the Revival was going to retain. It was a good match. It's a good introduction of Enzo and Cass. Once again, the crowd didn't seem as loud for whatever reason, but I mean, the act is over. It was a great tag team wrestling match. Enzo and Cass and the Revival, they're both. While we give a lot of credit to NXT for the women's wrestling revival, thanks to things like the Dusty Classic and a constant focus on it, they have actually done some really good work with tag team wrestling, where they're going with the old school formula where you get longer matches with long heat segments and good finishes and big hot tags, things that are missing on the tag matches that happen on Raw and even on pay-per-views lately, is the old school thing of the long heat segment and the hot tag. It's become less important in WWE's main roster, and I don't know when it happened, but you don't see that sort of old school match anymore. And it was nice, and they basically did the typical old school tag match with Enzo and Cass and the Revival on Roadblock. I wanted to say Lockdown for some reason. On Roadblock, it was good. It was great. I thought just another example of how NXT is doing things right. And I've been wanting Enzo and Cass to move to the main roster for a long time. Hopefully, this is finally the point where they say, okay, if you're not going to give them the tag team titles, and if they didn't give it to them in the UK and they didn't give them to them last night, there's no way they're getting them. They need to go to the main roster. There's no reason to keep them in NXT. So hopefully that was the graduation match for them. And the tag team division in NXT remains strong even without Enzo and Cass. I mean, even setting aside like American Alpha, you've got the Vaudevillains and Blake and Murphy and a couple other decent tag teams. Did the crowd react for Enzo and Cass? They did react, but as I said, the audience seemed muted all night. And maybe it was just that Jericho and Swagger took them way out and they had a long way to come back because they were pretty hot for the main event. But it didn't seem as sustained of a crowd as you would expect. But it was a much smaller crowd in the Rico. So it's possible that that's just, the result of having a small crowd in a big arena. And then after that match, we had Charlotte defeated Natalya to retain the Divas Championship. An excellent match. Just to remind people that Natalya is actually an excellent wrestler. The fact that she debuted in WWE at a time where they didn't give a shit about women's wrestling is one of those travesties. The fact that she's become basically a non-factor now that there are women who can actually keep up with her is terrible. But she and Charlotte went up. They did mat wrestling for the first 5 minutes of the match, like legitimate amateur mat wrestling. And it's great. It was a real wrestling match. Just great. I could easily say, and I know this is faint praise at this point, but this is the best women's match I've seen on the main roster so far this year. The good news about that is, so far, there are more women's matches coming that we can anticipate being even better than this one. And it was good. And in case you're one of those who have forgotten, like I almost did, is that Charlotte and Natalya faced in NXT when Charlotte won the NXT Women's Championship. And that was an excellent match. And it's, again, this is one of those good things about house shows, is things like a women's match between Charlotte and somebody who's not really a contender right now can be given 10 minutes or so. I didn't time it, but it was definitely a longer match than you would have seen between those two on Raw. And I mean, yeah, it had a Ric Flair distraction finish because of course it did, because that's what Ric Flair is there for. But Natalya looked great. Charlotte looked like a great wrestler. Great women's wrestling match. No title change because of course not, because in 3 weeks we got to have an incredible women's title match, and Natalya is not involved in that. The fact that that's bad because Natalya deserves to be in stuff like that is something else entirely. But this an excellent house show match. Next, we had an execution of the Wyatt family by Brock Lesnar. In fact, it turned out to be a 2-on-1 handicap match between Harper and Wyatt against Lesnar. And the biggest thing for me, the inadvertently hilarious thing for me, was that Bray Wyatt came out and cut a promo before the match where he talked about how Brock Lesnar has dominated, has conquered John Cena, has conquered The Rock, has conquered The Undertaker. And I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't mention a bunch of guys that Brock Lesnar has destroyed that you can't beat. Not that it matters, because they were going to get destroyed anyway. This match was basically Brock throwing Luke Harper around the ring repeatedly and eventually pinning him after a while. Bray abandoned the match about halfway through and stood on the ramp, because now we've decided we need to keep Bray Wyatt semi-strong. After it's way too late for that. It was a Brock Lesnar, it was Brock Lesnar and a ragdoll match. That is just, I don't know what the incentive for anyone to stay in the Wyatt family is at this point, because they're never. I don't have the stats on this, but I do believe that the Social Outcasts have won more matches this year than the Wyatt family. It's not a large number more, but it is more. But somehow Bray Wyatt has managed to actually look strong on Raw and on Roadblock, although not strong as in he just didn't get pinned by Lesnar or beaten up too badly. Which, against Lesnar, is actually looking strong. I'm going to guess the other half of the Wyatt family was in Atlantic City or something. I don't know. It's just another instance of Bray Wyatt. What do we do with him? He doesn't have a match for WrestleMania right now. I don't know any contenders for him anymore. He's not getting Lesnar. He's not getting The Undertaker. He's not feuding with anyone. Because there's nobody left. Unless he'd care to feud with, I don't know, Ryback or Kane or someone, and boy, do we not need to see that again. Yeah, and I guess that is the other question, is why did... I guess on Monday the whole argument is, well, we have to make him look semi-strong because he's facing Brock Lesnar on Saturday. But here's my thing. Nobody believes that Bray Wyatt whether he had won on Monday, well, he didn't win, he lost by DQ, but whether he beats up Dean Ambrose on Monday or not, nobody believes that Bray Wyatt is beating Brock Lesnar. There's no point in keeping him strong in that instance or making him look strong because it's Brock Lesnar. He's going to come in and destroy you. We know this. Similarly, yeah, there's no reason in keeping him strong or having him go unpinned against Lesnar because he has no match at WrestleMania. Maybe one of the Wyatt family will win the Battle Royal, and I'm not even thinking it'll be Bray. In any case, it's a bad idea. But maybe that's what they have to look forward to. And at this point, given the amount of talent left to put in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, it's happening on the pre-show anyway. Just like last year. It's not going to mean anything. It may be won by Hideo Itami for all that it matters at this point. So, it got a good couple years, almost. But they won't get rid of it because there's always a chance that they could use it for an angle a year down the road and put it on the actual main event, or on the pay-per-view. But, yeah, the Wyatt family thing, it's gone to the point of beyond baffling, to the point where I don't know what they can do with them anymore. They have been destroyed so badly, they are literally a Swamp Billy version of the Spirit Squad. You might as well pack them in a box and send them back to NXT. From the chat, he's either winning the Battle Royal or he's getting in the world title match. Don't ask me how, but there is no in between. Funnily enough, somehow they might actually, like, not that they would actually do that, but that's the kind of WWE thinking that somehow they would logically reach. Either they don't do anything with him and throw in a Battle Royal, or suddenly out of nowhere he ends up in the world title match somehow because of something involving that stare down on Monday. It wouldn't make sense, and it wouldn't be anything anyone cared about, but you can just see it happening. Or he'll get involved in Shane versus The Undertaker somehow. Because why not? It just boggles the mind. So that happened, and that wasn't much. And then we had Sami Zayn against Stardust. Not the greatest match. Just one of those ones that was interesting from the fact of, hey, we never see this. We'd never see this on Raw. It went a little long. It went long enough to remind me that Stardust actually has a moveset. But, it was fine. It's nice to see Sami Zayn wrestle again. I mean, it's not going to hold a patch on the other Sami Zayn match that aired this week on NXT, which, I mean, Joe versus Sami, 2 out of 3 falls for the entire episode of NXT. Hard to compete with. But it can all be overshadowed by the fact that, aren't we glad that Sami Zayn is on the main roster finally? Because he's just so darn likable that you can almost see that there's no way he can't succeed, right? I mean, I say that, and maybe that's a dream of mine, but Sami just seems like one of those guys who's going to succeed just on the strength of the fact that everybody loves Sami Zayn. And also he's going to fight Kevin Owens, and that's going to happen forever and ever and ever, and I don't think anybody has a problem with that. That was a meaningless match that Sami Zayn won. I know I'm breezing through some of this stuff, but it was literally a house show. And so we got to the main event, which started... Sorry, I'm going to cough for a second. Sorry. The main event started with like 10 minutes after 10, maybe a little less. So you knew that this wasn't going to go to 11 o'clock. And, I don't care about that, but it just seemed kind of odd that they booked it for 3 hours and only 2.5. But anyway, so we have Triple H versus Dean Ambrose, and the first thing that I noticed was that Triple H sold like nuts for Dean Ambrose. Like, he sold more than he sold for a lot of people. I would legitimately call the match that match that I just saw between Triple H and Dean Ambrose, that was a star-making match for Dean Ambrose. Triple H took Dean's offense and made it look incredible. Dean got some really good near falls and actually got a legitimate fall that was nullified by his feet being under the ropes. So he actually has pinned Triple H cleanly off a single hit of his finisher. Except it was, his feet were under the ropes, so the ref called that off. And as much as that's a silly finish, the fact that Dean got a legitimate one finisher pin on Triple H is incredible. And, you cannot discount that. Of course, the finish was Dean's getting some fire, throws Triple H on the announce table and goes for a diving elbow drop off the barricade. Triple H rolls out of the way. Dean makes it back in the ring before 9 and gets pedigreed, and that's the match. And I mean, I get it. It sucked the hearts out of the crowd. It sucked the hearts out of people watching, I'm certain. But let's not discount how incredible this match was. It went about 20 minutes. Non-stop action, pretty much. Ambrose looked like a major star. And I'm going to keep harping on this because I'm not the only one. He looked like a bigger star than Roman Reigns. he got to come out. He got to get the best of Triple H repeatedly. He hit lots of moves. He got a pin. He only got beaten because he went for the big move and failed. And he still managed to not take the countout loss and get back in. Do I think Triple H is trying to make a statement that he's a bigger fan of Ambrose instead of Reigns? I don't know. I think it was Triple H proving that he can do this with Ambrose, and he's going to try and do it with Reigns. I don't know for sure. It was definitely a statement match for Triple H. And I think at a certain point it was a statement match for Dean Ambrose that he could have that kind of match. Because one of the knocks on Dean Ambrose, and it's semi-legitimate, is he's not the best wrestler in the world. He wrestles with a lot of emotion, but not a lot of skill. And that works for him, but it's not going to lead to a lot of high-quality matches, just a lot of high-intensity ones. And that can work. And it is working. But I think this was, Triple H. When it's big match time, Triple H has those big matches. Now, of course, sometimes he goes too far and he ends up with trying to make the matches epic, which involves a lot of lying around, like those Undertaker matches at WrestleMania that everybody else talks about how great it was, but I sit there and say they literally lie around for half the match. This is Triple H. Like, I think at this point what this was is Triple H going all out and putting Dean Ambrose over as hard as he could to show that he can, and then there could be no question when he goes out at WrestleMania against Roman Reigns and does the same thing and tries to put Roman Reigns out over just as hard and loses the title, it won't be Triple H's... The fingers won't be pointing at Triple H when the crowd doesn't like Roman Reigns. I honestly, it's not so much a statement as a, listen, I'm doing everything I can here, folks. It's subtler. He's not going to sandbag Reigns at WrestleMania because he's not going to want to be associated with a bad match. He's going to do his damnedest to put Reigns over, and then when the crowd says, boo, he's going to say, listen, I tried. But if I can have that match with him and the crowd still doesn't like him, maybe we need to think about something else. Because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take Triple H dragging Roman Reigns to some sort of incredible match and the crowd still not getting behind Reigns, and maybe that's what'll do it. I mean, we're all pie in the sky at this point. But a large part of Triple H's ego is that when he goes out to have those main event matches, he wants to have the best match. And he doesn't always succeed, but you know that he's always trying to have the best match. So it didn't matter that this was just a house show match that happened to be on the network. He was going to go out there, and he was going to show the world that at 46, Triple H is still the best wrestler in the world. And he's not the best, but one of the best wrestlers in the world. So that when he comes out at WrestleMania, there is no question that even at 46, he's still the guy who deserves to be in the main event of WrestleMania. And whether that may or may not be true, you know he's putting out the effort. And by seeing what we saw today, we know he's capable of putting on a spectacular match with damn near anyone. So when Roman Reigns doesn't get over at WrestleMania, and mark my words, he's not getting over at WrestleMania, then Triple H can stand there and say, listen, I did everything I could. He just doesn't have it. And yes, Roman Reigns should turn heel. He should turn heel Monday. He should turn heel at WrestleMania. He should turn heel the day after WrestleMania. It will instantly absolve every single sin and almost solve all their problems. Temporarily, at least. And they say, you can't turn him heel because then the people who are booing him will cheer him. And it's not the problem with the people who are booing him versus as a face who would cheer him as a heel, which I don't think would happen anyway because, like I said, even the smart fans will still play along if what you're booking is enjoyable. But what I'm saying is it's not the people who are booing him right now. It's the people who don't give a shit about him, and it's a lot of people. And you can't say that, he gets good live event reactions when it's clear that the ratings have dropped. Since Shane McMahon's return inflated the ratings and got them over 4 million viewers, within that show, actually, the third hour there lost 700,000 viewers. But since that show, they have steadily lost viewers and ratings as it's become clear that the course is still Roman Reigns versus Triple H for WrestleMania. And the fans are not interested. And there's no sports on, and there's not really anything else on Monday nights. There's no excuse for why in WrestleMania season viewership is steadily declining. And at some point, the guy on top gets to take the blame for that. And Triple H is bulletproof, so you know who the guy taking the blame is going to be. So, I don't know what to tell them. And I don't, we can say it till it's blue in the face. But, and I think part of the reason why it would also work for Roman Reigns to turn heel is if he turned heel, he would instantly be the top heel on the program. Because the reason why Triple H has the World Heavyweight title right now is because there is no other strong heel on Raw. If Roman Reigns stays as the face, do you know who he has to face? Other than maybe them stretching it with Triple H for another 3 weeks? Beyond that, we've got guys like Ryback and the League of Nations and Bray Wyatt. And we've just covered why most of those guys are useless. Because they aren't credible as main event heels. You've got plenty of guys who are credible as main event faces. You've got Ambrose, you've got AJ Styles, you've got potentially Sami Zayn, you got John Cena coming back, Seth Rollins will probably come back as face. You have lots of guys who can be main event faces. Your main event heel side is weak. And yeah, Vince will blame it on the fact that the ratings are going down because Cena's not there, Orton's not there, a bunch of other guys are, and that's just ridiculous. Because and I know ratings week to week don't mean anything, but the fact that they managed to pop a 4 million viewer rating a few weeks ago shows that there are people who are still willing to give wrestling a chance if something interesting happens. And the fact that they keep going away suggests that nothing interesting is happening. And it doesn't suggest, it says it, because nothing interesting has happened. The fact that WWE spent the last 2 weeks putting more effort into the build for Roadblock than the build for Wrestlemania suggests that they know that their build for Wrestlemania is anemic. It's not good. The build for Roadblock got more effort and more work put into what people should have known was just going to be a televised house show. I don't know what people were expecting from Roadblock. I keep going back to this, and people are going to be disappointed because nothing happened. To them, I want to say, you need to understand, this was a house show. Nothing was going to happen. WrestleMania is set in stone. There was never going to be a, in case of emergency, break glass at Roadblock situation. I would guarantee that on, say, Monday, Roman Reigns will appear to make the save for Dean Ambrose getting his ass kicked, and they will assume that the heat will transfer to him. Which will not happen, but I guarantee this was the plan. They're keeping Roman Reigns off TV in the build to WrestleMania and building up Dean Ambrose so that he can get his ass beat and Roman Reigns can make the save for his buddy. Now, where that leaves us for Ambrose Brock Lesnar, after Ambrose keeps getting the shit kicked out of him, I don't know. But that's where we're at. I mean, I just don't understand how they think that they're going to get better reactions from Roman Reigns by not having him on television. He's not going to get worse reactions, but I don't see how it helps him. And the pictures that they keep circulating of his nasal surgery made him look vaguely sleepy. None of this looked... When you've got a guy on your show right now whose storyline is beat the shit out of me. I don't care. I'll show up next week. I will drive an ambulance into the building and crawl my way to the ring to challenge some guy who I know I can't beat to a match. And Roman Reigns gets a broken nose and disappears. As I've said several times, I've never seen somebody who apparently has the entire support of the company to become the number one face in WWE booked as badly as Roman Reigns. At this point, it's hard to believe that they think that because the booking seems like it's actively sabotaging him. You just had to watch Raw for the last 2 weeks and say, man, I don't miss Roman Reigns from this because, boy, that Dean Ambrose looks interesting and dynamic and far more fun than watching Roman Reigns. And I don't know why you would book someone like that when he's not in the main event of WrestleMania, while keeping the guy who is in the main event of WrestleMania at home having nasal surgery that, is my understanding, was optional. I don't want to say cosmetic. It was surgery that was not entirely necessary. He had a deviated septum. It could have at least waited. I just feel like 6 weeks before WrestleMania, when you're main eventing, not the time to have that fixed. And I'm not a doctor, so maybe there was a medical reason to do so. But even with nasal surgery, you could have had him on television. Instead, they've got Michael Cole reading tweets from Roman Reigns about how much he cares, and that's literally the least he could do. He is nobody's hero. And, yeah, okay. From the chat, they didn't want Roman Reigns to get booed for 6 weeks straight. You know what? If they don't want Roman Reigns to get booed for 6 weeks straight, they either book him better or turn him heel so they do want him to get booed for 6 weeks straight. Because if the only way to stop Roman Reigns from getting booed is to not have him on television, you fucked up somewhere. Like, in what world is this a rational reaction? Oh, the fans don't like this guy we're pretending is the best good guy ever. Should we keep him a good guy and do nothing except take him off TV so they can't boo him and that will make them like him? Where's the logical leap here? This is the thing. By what logic does taking Roman Reigns off television so that the fans can't actively boo him change anything? At some point, you have to put him back on television, and all you've done is keep him away for 3 weeks while other people look like more attractive options. And I'm just a simple country hyper chicken. But I don't understand the rationale here. It's the same rationale that had them say, oh, we have to keep putting off Roman Reigns' title victory until his reactions get better, and then not doing anything to make his reactions better. Or when they don't get better, we just put it off again. At this point, the only reason why Roman Reigns is winning at WrestleMania 32 is because, god damn it, we said we had to change plans for the last 2 WrestleManias, and I'll be damned if we're going to change it for the 3rd straight WrestleMania. Stubbornness is rarely a good reason to do something. The reason you had to change the last 2 WrestleManias was because of poor crowd reactions that was going to make your biggest show of the year look like crap. This year, poor crowd reactions are going to make your biggest show of the year look like crap, and it's not actually your biggest show of the year. It is actually going to be, with 84,000 tickets sold, the biggest live attended WrestleMania ever. Unless you believe the 93,000 number from WrestleMania 3. It's going to be one of the biggest WrestleManias of all time, and they're all going to be booing the guy that you think you want as your champion. Why wouldn't you change plans? The reasons to change plans are good ones. You're just not doing it out of sheer spite at this point. You're not doing it because it's best for business. You're not doing it because he's a hot character. You're not even doing it because crowds are reacting to him particularly strongly. You're doing it because you don't want to be wrong for the 3rd straight time. You know what? Sometimes you're wrong 3 times in a row. And to be wrong, and to deliberately be wrong, when you know that you have answers that are better just sitting there, baffles me. Like, I'm not a stubborn 70-year-old man. I will give them that. But that stubborn 70-year-old man still knows wrestling like few people. He knows enough that he changed his plans the last 2 years in a row because he knew it was a good idea. Whether he has shown that he will make the right decision. But in this case, he has, for God only knows why, put his foot down and said Roman Reigns will be it. That's the part that confuses me. I mean, if he was getting decent reactions, I would see stay in the course. But he's not. He's not. He's barely getting, at the best of times, the John Cena split crowd. And yet we've hitched this wagon permanently to him because, well, he sells a lot of merchandise. Well, he has a lot of merchandise, and it's all over television because you want him to be the big guy. Well, he gets good pops at live shows. You know who else gets good pops at live shows? Santino Marella. Should we make him world champion? I mean, he's not on the roster right now, but you know what I mean. Opening act comedy gimmicks get good pops at house shows. House shows are for those crowds who don't get WWE in their town more than once a year. And yeah, I get that Vince is tired of giving in to people like us. You know who people like us are? Wrestling fans. And I read an interview this week, and I posted about it, about why Vince doesn't like the internet. And it's not because we have an opinion, it's because we try to spoil everything, and I can understand that. But at the same time, you're doing things to spite people who are actually wrestling fans. And I get that you want the casual audience, but guess what? They're not there. And Roman Reigns isn't going to bring them back. Because if he was, he would have done it by now. They didn't make Steve Austin WWE champion and hope that he would bring people in. They made Steve Austin the face of the company and the centerpiece of WWE because he was already bringing the fans in. You don't just... It's the same thing as giving a guy a title and hoping he'll get over now that he has a title. You should be over to get the title, not over because you got one. At some point, they lost that thread. And Roman Reigns is it writ large. Is they decided he was going to be the guy despite there not being any real reason or examples of why he should be the guy. Other than he's got a good look and can wrestle. But they got lots of guys on the roster like that. What made him so special? Because it wasn't, when they decided, he wasn't selling a lot of merchandise because he was part of the Shield. He wasn't putting on great matches as a solo act. He damn sure can't cut a promo. But they decided he was going to be this guy, and he's the guy. And I get, there's being stubborn, and then there's being stubborn beyond the point of reason. Do they have anyone on the roster besides Cena that can bring people in? I would argue that Cena can't bring people in anymore because he's just been around for too long. And yeah, he's a pillar and he's not going to go away. And he'll sell merchandise until the day he dies. But I would argue that John Cena doesn't bring in casual audiences because he's done everything. There's no longer anything for people to get people. There's no longer something John Cena related that you can tell people to tune in because they have to watch because he's done everything. And that's not, I'm not being derogatory. It's just the way it is. He's been on top for 10 years. He's done all there is to do multiple times. If you want to show the audience something new, it cannot be John Cena. It can be supplemented by his presence. But John Cena, as the centerpiece of the company, I don't believe is any way to bring in a casual audience. But to answer the question, I don't know. It's possible. Did anybody think when Steve Austin started in WWE as the ringmaster that he was going to be the guy to bring wrestling into the new era? To make WWE a billion-dollar company? the thing about wrestling is you don't know where your next star is coming from. You can give people more chances than others because you think they have it, but in the end, you don't know. Some nobody from the middle of nowhere could turn out to be the greatest champ of all time. Because, at some point they did something that the crowd got behind, and then they became a big star as a result. I should say that they have people on the roster who would not be worse options than Roman Reigns. I don't know that it's Dean Ambrose, but I don't know that it's not. I feel like he's a guy who's earned a chance. I don't know that it's AJ Styles, and maybe it is and maybe it isn't. I don't know that it's Bullet Club, or whatever form it takes. I don't know that, I don't know who it could be. I have my own personal opinion who I'd like to see, but that doesn't mean that that's what's going to catch on with the general public. But the point is, they're ignoring every option. They've decided that Roman Reigns is the only option without giving anyone else a chance. And they've given Roman Reigns that chance to the exclusion of every. Like they won't even consider that there might be a different option. At this point, like they've done it before, but at this point they've decided, no, it's got to be him because reasons. And that's why, like, it shows such a lack of any sense. I have no beef with Roman Reigns. He's a decent wrestler. I'm sure he can learn to talk eventually. And he's got a good look. He would be a fine addition. Do I see him as a WWE champion? Maybe one day. Do I think that he should have been WWE champion 3 times in 5 months? Not particularly. Do I think he can carry this company? Not for a second. Do I know any better options? I can't say that I do, but I think there are options that definitely would not be worse, which I would find more enjoyable. And that's the only thing I can do because that's the extent of my experience. What I like may not be what everybody likes, but I know that there are enough people who would agree with me that Roman Reigns is not for me. And I look at him and I do not see a guy who's going to bring us into a golden age of wrestling. Which, by the way that they are pushing him, that is certainly what they seem to believe. And I wish I could see what they see so maybe I could understand. But I don't. Well, we basically only covered Roadblock. The only other thing to really talk about was Y2AJ breaking up, which was good because I really didn't want to see them stuck in a tag team in a meaningless WrestleMania match because AJ Styles is 38 and you don't need to bring him in for 3 years and have him waste a WrestleMania match on a meaningless tag match with Chris Jericho. It's Chris Jericho versus AJ Styles again, and I bet it'll be pretty awesome. I know it's the 4th time, but I'm willing to bet that they are going to do something pretty good. Do I think AJ will be a world champion? I think they're paying him enough that they should at least give him a shot at it. But that doesn't guarantee anything. I don't know what level they see him at. The crowd reaction certainly suggests that they should at least give him a chance. But you sit there and go, when does he get a shot if Roman Reigns is the guy on top? And then you have to shrug your shoulders and go, I don't know. Other than that, I think that's about it. I guess I should take the time to do the opening spiel I forgot to do. Obviously, this show is available on Spreaker.com. It's also available on iTunes and Stitcher. It gets posted on forumania.com and our Facebook group, TWNE After Dark. And the links to the live show go up on Twitter, but I don't know about other than that. We're also part of the W2M Network, which is a series of wrestling and other related podcasts of all sorts of entertainment spectrum. You're You can join that Facebook group at Wrestling to the Max. Is the with the number two on Facebook. Sean should give me more promotional materials so I can actually promote him more effectively. My podcast gets posted there as well. What else? I think that's all. Of course, my day job, I work for men's entertainment website Goliath.com. I am essentially the senior wrestling editor. So basically 95% of what you read there that's wrestling related is me. We have just introduced for mobile users, which is like 90% of our base, infinite scrolling. So no more next pages. So there you can read my stuff forever if you want. But I do appreciate everyone who listens to the show, who talks about the show, who visits Goliath and pays my day job. What else we got? If you happen to be playing the Division on PS4, I'm having fun. I've played it for a bit. I'm level 11, I think. If you want to play with me, I have a mic that finally got it to work. Dave the Camel 411 on the PlayStation Network. I am usually available late at night Eastern Time. If you want to play the Division, and I can always use a few friends to spray bullets at things. Other than that, I haven't been playing anything else. I've had a busy week at work, and if you haven't been able to tell, I have another cold because I live with a toddler. What else? At 411, I'm in Games Factor Fiction every week, pretty much. I keep forgetting to give the answers into Daniel, but I do eventually. I was in 4-player co-op a couple weeks ago, but I got screwed because Sean gave all the points to somebody who'd actually played Pokemon. So I assume I'll be in another one shortly. Have we got anything else to talk about? Baseball started. I'm happy about that. How about you guys? So WrestleMania is 3 weeks away. Hopefully some more developments on Raw. Maybe at some point we'll find out why The Undertaker is fighting for Vince McMahon, but I doubt it. WrestleMania is looking pretty good, and the NXT TakeOver card for the weekend before that also looks pretty awesome. So, I mean, at least that weekend's looking like a pretty good weekend full of wrestling. Creatively, it could be great, but it isn't yet. I guess I did mention the Samoa Joe versus Sami Zayn match on NXT this week. It is 2 out of 3 falls. It is the entire show. Well worth checking out. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the best match either man has ever had. It's not the best match in NXT history. But if you ever want to see something that's it's a spectacle that you have to watch because it's literally a match that's over 30 minutes long with a guy like Samoa Joe in it who you don't expect to be able to go that long, it's a pretty incredible thing to watch. It's the kind of match you have to see once just so you can say, well, I saw that match and that was something different. I'm also watching Lucha Underground. I keep giving them short shrift, but I am watching Lucha Underground. It is on iTunes, and apparently there's deals. It might come into Netflix, so you really have no excuse not to watch Lucha Underground. It's pretty incredible stuff, and I hardly recommend it. It is literally, it is a show that is not watched by enough people that should be. So I don't mean to keep ignoring it. I just I think people should watch it. I really do. Yes, the 3-way match on Lucha Underground this week was very good. Wednesday nights are actually pretty good because you get Lucha Underground and you get NXT. Great wrestling. 2 hours worth. Just spectacular stuff. The 3-way this week between Prince Puma, Pentagon Jr., and Mil Muertes. Just great stuff. And in 2 weeks, I think, it's Aztec Warfare, which is like the Royal Rumble, only better in many ways. Just really good stuff. People doing some really interesting wrestling, some really interesting storytelling. If you're a wrestling fan, you kind of have to check it out. And like I said, it's on iTunes. There's no excuse. None. You know where to find it. You can't just say, oh, I don't have El Rey. Well, I don't have El Rey and I've seen it. So, with all that said, I want to thank everyone for listening. I thank the people in the chat. We did have some people in the chat. I know we started early today because I just wanted to get done right after Roadblock, so I just fresh in my mind and just go straight at it. So I'm glad some people joined in live. Like I said, you can join the Facebook group TWNE After Dark. You can follow me on Twitter at Dave the Camel. This show, of course, is available on ForumMania.com through the W2M network, on iTunes and Stitcher, and of course on Spreaker.com. We should be back again next Saturday at around midnight. You can always follow the Facebook group because I tell you when there are delays or when the show starts early if you want to listen live, and I do encourage you to do so because you can chat with some interesting people and me. And who wouldn't want to talk to me? I'm so lovable. So I'm going to get out of here. We will see you next week. Have a good one. Always be a fan.